Hey Siri, what's generation? Hello everyone and welcome back to my podcast. As always, I'm your host, Srinika Siri Kanaganti, and welcome back to the show. So to answer today's opening question, what is a generation? Well, before I answer that, I do want to tell you guys what this episode is about, and I know that you can usually guess it from the opening question, but this is something that I wanted to specifically address and I wanted to get the message out. So, if you watched my most recent episode, that isn't this one? Yeah, my most recent episode, Confusing Things Confuse Me. First of all, if you haven't, why are you watching this episode? Watch the episodes in order, no offense. But I do include some, chronological, transition stuff. So, watch my episodes in order, you guys, and, watch the episode. But if you have watched it, at the end of the episode, one of the highly debated gray areas / paradoxes I mention is the paradox of marketing that I call, and I also call it the fault in Gen Z, or I call it the error in Gen Z or something. So this video is sort of like a transition from that because it's from Gen Z to generations. And first of all, actually, I don't know if I want to surprise you guys with this bit. You know what? I'll answer the opening question first, and then I'll tell you this really big, or actually pretty small, but also giant bit of news that I wanted to address. But to answer the opening question, what is generation? I don't exactly know how to describe what a generation is, and maybe that's the problem with my generation, Gen Z. But it's and I'm trying to refrain from using the words or this or I can't explain this because as a podcast host you have to know what you're speaking about, but this is something that everyone regardless of what generation they are cannot really speak about or properly define. So first of all, if I'm being honest, I would highly recommend using Google and search a definition of generation, but based on the context that I use it and see it used as youth or whatever as a middle schooler, it's usually just a generation's just a group of people of different ages. So, and it's not oh, a 1-year-old is different generation than a 2-year-old. It's basically different people born in a different time span or span of years are classified as different generations. So someone born in 2001 is probably the same generation as someone born in 2009, maybe. Yeah, so someone born in 2001 is the same generation as someone born in 2009, but someone born in 1980 is actually not the same generation as someone born in 1975 or something. They're two different generations. So it really just depends where the line is drawn. It doesn't mean there's a huge age difference, but it's basically... Actually, I want to start giving examples of this because when I say it's basically, then I just repeat my first answer because I'm confused on how to define it. But as of today, there's there's the youngest, or I think the youngest generation, the babies that were born during COVID is Gen Alpha, but they're not even really considered a generation considering the fact that they were just born yesterday. But the youngest primary generation is Gen Z, which is me, and it's short for generation. I don't know what that sound was. I don't know if you guys heard it. But so Gen Z stands for Generation Z, and it's basically kids born from I think the early 2000s or late 1990s. I don't know for sure, but it's mostly teenagers, young adults, and a few little kids now. And then after that there's millennials, which is not really old but not really as young as us, just in their 30s, 20s, 30s, maybe 40s. I would say 30s is the best example. And then after that, there's baby boomers, which is your current grandparents, and then boomers are people who fought in the war. And then Gen Z is also known as Zoomers. Maybe that's what the Z is for. I really don't know the terminology of the classification. All I know is that Gen Z constantly calls out millennials, baby boomers, and boomers, and they do the same to us. So it's an ongoing mini war basically. So this video is all about generations, and what I wanted to address was that I do not hate Gen Z, nor do I love Gen Z, nor do I hate or love any other generations. Actually, I hate and love every single generation, and I think that's what I should make the title of this episode. So yeah, filming series currently predicting that the title of this episode will be I hate every generation. Now, I don't hate every generation. No, I mean, let me clarify this. in terms of what I was thinking while filming this episode, I hate every generation, but I like every generation. Like I tolerate every single generation, and it's equal. I don't like hate Gen Z and like love millennials, or like love Gen Z and hate baby boomers or something. I hate and love and like have the exact same feelings for every generation. So if I hate you, don't feel bad, because you're not the only person. I don't really hate anyone or any generation, but I sort of like address what's bad about them the most. And that's basically what this entire episode is about. So that's like a mini teaser for this episode, I guess. So if you're kind of sensitive and don't like your generation being called out in a very professional, calm, sweet Siri podcast manner, then I would recommend clicking off this episode. But I feel like it's really important that most people stay and watch this episode, because you could know like what Gen Z thinks of your generation and what Gen Z thinks of itself, I guess. But in this episode, I definitely do want to cover like a few like major points, I guess. So let's move on to those. I've kind of lost my sense of transitions at this point. But yeah, so our first talking point that I like really wanted to address with this episode is, and I'm blanking out, but I remembered it. Okay, so I feel generational trauma is obviously has the word generation in it, and it's basically just like trauma that's passed down from generation to generation. Like, for example, I would say the best example of generational trauma is like older sister trauma. And this term is mostly coined with like Gen Z, sometimes millennials, but I feel like this specific like term, or this term has like different names and like different generations, but the concept and like the experience is the same. It's just like a different name. Yeah. So the older sister trauma is basically, and also this is coming from an impartial third party, because I am a sister, but I'm a younger sister and I have an older sibling. I'm not going to reveal too much. I don't want to dox myself. So I'm not an older sister, so I can't really speak about this, like tell you my experiences as an older sister, because I'm not one, but this is like my impartial third party perspective. Older sister trauma is basically when the oldest sister, often of like 2 to 3, like maybe 4, even 5, sometimes 6 kids, like takes care of them the most. Like the older sister, first of all, she's like, and this isn't like what I think an older sister would do. It's like what so many like the eldest of all siblings have done for so many generations. They like have to take care of their younger siblings, have to finance the family, have to wash dishes, do chores, all while getting like the best test scores ever, being a doctor, doing this, doing that. Like obviously it's like, yas, girl boss, or like, slay, like you're doing great, we're really proud of you. But at the same time, you don't really realize how much stress you're putting on them. So that's like older sister trauma / syndrome, I would say. I don't think it's a syndrome, but I want to call it that because it's really difficult for older sisters. And just want to say a hearty like thank you and I love you from like Siri Talks Back. We support you, you guys. Keep older sistering. Maybe I should make that a verb. I should make Siri Talks Backing talking back a word, a verb. Yeah. Guys, let's change the English language with me today. Yeah. So that's older sister trauma. And I feel that that's one of those things that it's there in every generation. Like it's heavily prominent, present, but it never actually goes away. Like it might like hide away for a little bit, then rise up. It's like going up and down, like one of those like heart monitor beepy things. I am not associated with the medical field in any way, even though I know people who want to be in the medical field. So, please don't mind if I completely butcher medical terms. Yeah. So basically, it's one of those things that just keeps staying there, never stops existing, never completely goes out of existence, is never like terribly high. It's just like always present in the background. And that's another point that I wanted to bring up. It's that there are so many different things that stay in each generation, like good and bad, that never fully go away. But at the same time, they're not discussed often because they've like been on here, like been on earth or whatever, been like within society for so many generations, and they just never fully go away, and we don't really address them. We may have in the past, but we definitely don't do it now. And honestly, there's so many different examples of this that I don't know how I'm gonna fit this all in one video. So first of all, I would say it's that every generation has its own problems. Like I know you're gonna be like, oh, this generation has it worse, this generation has it best, or like the generation in which slavery was present and like the Civil War, the American Revolution, all the like bloody like battle-filled generations had it the worst. Yeah, okay, wait, no, that sounds like an ignorant Gen Z. That's also one thing I wanted to bring up, stereotypes. Yeah, we will get into all of that later. But basically, every generation has had its own struggles. And obviously, like, a generation that lived during the Civil War might seem much, much harder than living during Gen Z. But I feel like it's just different aspects. Like, for example, yes, so many people struggled as soldiers during, like, this war, the American Revolution. Obviously the Civil War, because it was like the bloodiest war in American history or something. But I'm not an American history teacher, and neither is my podcast. It's not one of those resources. I mean, you might learn history, but that's not the point. You guys were sidetracking. But basically, every generation does have its own struggles, and the reason why the Civil War is equal to like serving in the Civil War, like being alive during that time, is equal to being Gen Z today is that over time our struggles evolve, and they don't get easier, they don't get harder, they're the same level, but our tools around us change, and our like mindsets, everything change. So even though it might seem to others as if it's easy, if you have the like true mindset, I guess, of the generation, you'd know it's hard. So obviously I'm having lots of trouble. Okay, not lots, but I'm definitely struggling a bit here and there to explain this. So let's go into my favorite savior, like the thing that saves me in every podcast episode. Examples. I don't know. That was so like unicorn and rainbow-ish. Yeah, I'm not a third grader, but I kind of do have the mind of one. But anyways, back to sidetracking. Yeah, back to the main topic. The best example that I can give you is getting into college, because obviously, okay, first of all I want to say is no stereotypes, no like bullying each other in the comments, because I know I have some really close friends who like will reply or like comment on my podcast video, especially on YouTube, and they are my friends, so obviously they're the same generation as me, so I really don't want them to fight with like any like uncles, aunts, like any relatives, any like old people. I don't know my viewer demographic that much. I don't really pay attention to who watches it. I just pay attention to like what they say about it and like feedback, but I don't really care like if a 1-year-old watched my podcast versus if a 100-year-old did. I would like appreciate it either way. I'm the age like demographic from like 1 to 100. It would be really cool knowing I had like one viewer from every age, but that's going into a whole nother episode. But just want to like readdress no bullying or hatred in the comments, because I do not have enough brain cells to deal with that. Yeah, I know school is ending, and also my brain cell count is ending too, and it's like lacking. But yeah, it's okay. I'm still slaying regardless though. But anyways, getting into college is super hard nowadays. Like honestly, I don't even know where to begin. First of all, you have to have like, now, I'm not talking about getting into college as in just going to any community college. I mean, like, at least a decent college. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, straight, like, in the Ivy League, like Harvard, Cambridge, what else is there? MIT, Cornell. Oh, my God, there's so many Ivy Leagues. My brain's, like, blinking out. Stanford. I already mentioned Harvard. Like, Boston University. UPenn. There's so many different Ivies that are really hard to get into, but I'm talking into, like, general range of like good, at least like good state colleges like CSU, oh yeah, and UCs of course, to like UCs. I feel like UC is perfectly in the middle because it's like low-key Ivy but also kind of a state university, so that's like where I'm drawing the line at. But if you want to get into like at least a UC, you have to have like a 4.3 weighted GPA and like 4.0 unweighted. You have to have all these extracurriculars. You need to like save the world, cure cancer, end world hunger. What else? Stop COVID. Give everyone their own podcast. You have to do so many different things, all while doing all these volunteer programs, doing this, doing that, like helping underserved kids, and while also pursuing your own passions, like undertaking internships, earning money, caring for your family, doing house chores, doing this, doing that. Now, before I begin, I just want to say I'm not going to give you that stereotypical like Gen Z, like, oh my God, we're struggling. Because I know that a lot of different elder people think that Gen Z are like making a fuss for no reason. And they're like, oh my God, it was so much harder during our times. But that's another thing I'm going to get into about like the evolution of generations. But the point is, you guys, Gen Z, like we have so much on our plate for college. Like literally I struggle so much that I'm gonna have to continue this podcast, and I'm gonna include on my college application most likely, and I really hope that I can continue. I don't think I'm gonna run out of episode ideas, guys. I keep getting sidetracked. I feel like the sidetracking is officially like built into part of the episode. Like it just adds humor, maybe. I don't know. I Let's not do episode analytics or like analyzing my episodes with Siri. Let's not do that today, you guys. I don't have enough brain cells for it. But anyways, as I was saying, we have so many things to do. And I know that we have like opportunities, like obviously technology, people, our mindsets, everything has grown and evolved, but still it's a lot to take in knowing that you have to like do all these tasks. And I'm not like fully complaining, but I'm just saying it's definitely hard. So, what I'm trying to say is don't underestimate the amount of pressure that we have on our shoulders as Gen Z to like do this, do that. Like obviously, yeah, we have new tech and there's so many people setting good examples, but it's still a lot of weight on our shoulders, and I have very fragile ones. So yeah, that's all I can say. And obviously, like in the past, for example, maybe not millennials, like baby boomers, they didn't have as much technology, they didn't have phones, they didn't have their own podcasts like this. So college was easier for them because of the lack of opportunity and stuff they had. But at the same time, tuition was way less. Inflation like goes up like as you get older. Yeah, like as time progresses, inflation goes up and up. So in the past it was much lower. There's so many different aspects to consider. I think it's that even though it's because it is the same level of difficulty. Like in the past it was much easier because there wasn't as much technology or simplicity, and you had to work and maintain a job. And now there's like all these internships, grants, and there is so much technology, so you can accomplish all of these because you have all these like tools. And I keep hinting at technology so much. Like obviously you have all these things to back you up, but that doesn't excuse the fact that it's still difficult. So technically it is the same level of difficulty, but just knowing the fact that you're gonna have to like do all of this in the future is a lot to know. Like I'm in middle school. Ever since I was in 6th grade, I used to fear college like really badly. Like I used to think, oh my god, I'm so glad I'm not going to college. Then I realized it actually is a really cool place. Obviously, like I'm excited to go to college, but like I'm also like praying that I actually get into a good one, because like no matter how talented you are, it can still be really difficult to like properly like speak about yourself on an essay or like accomplish all these things. It is really difficult, and obviously like the IVs are for the best of the best per se, but it's we struggle. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to self sabotage. I'm just trying to say that we struggle. And another point that I wanted to bring up is like how the issues have evolved from each generation. So in terms of issues, I don't really mean like I mean both issues like directly affecting the people and like overall issues like in the area. Like obviously racism, homophobia, classism. I've heard of like ageism, and that actually ageism kind of like being discriminating because of your age, like older versus young, because I have talked about this in a past episode about, actually it was a very recent episode about how we can't like not listen to older people or like really young people just because you're like really old or you're really young. Sorry about the background noise if you can hear those. So I have talked about like don't discriminate between ages, so I guess that's ageism. But as I was saying, there's like colorism, racism, homophobia, fat phobia, all of these isms, all of these phobias, like all of these different issues that are like discriminating against races, stuff like that. Obviously there was slavery, the Civil War, this, that, so many things to unpack. So I feel that obviously like Gen Z sort of, it doesn't turn an eye to all of these issues, but they've kind of evolved in the sense that obviously we're much more accepting, we understand. So homophobia has definitely decreased at least a bit compared to like during the 1900s or 1800s when it was basically illegal. And I'm not trying to say that it's like easy to be part of the LGBTQIA plus community today, or saying it's easy to be a person of color. I'm just saying that people have accepted it more, but I'm not saying that they've accepted it completely. And that's what I really want to emphasize on. Like obviously our issues have improved today, like at least a little bit, but they haven't completely gone away. And that's what bothers me the most. It's that if we were able to take so many steps forward, why couldn't we take the last few and just finish it off? And I guess we're just being lazy. And that's also another concern that I wanted to address. It's that so many people think that the newest generation is lazy, and it really bothers me because we are trying. And like, yeah, there's like the term iPad kid was coined in Gen Z for like someone who grew up always eating while looking at like technology, and yeah, that was me as a kid. My parents definitely did spoil me, but hey, I'm still grateful for what I have. But that's also another misconception about Gen Z, and that just draws in stereotypes, which I really want to talk about because it's like, oh my god, I just want to like spitfire you guys. Like obviously, I'm not gonna like go off or like roast millennials or like baby boomers or something. But there's so many different stereotypes that Gen Z is like careless, spoiled, like super spoiled, basically baby Kardashians, or that we're becoming lazy, or that we don't understand like how to do household chores because we're inventing robots and stuff for it. And then there's a misconception that like every single old person is annoying, boring, doesn't understand Gen Z. That they're annoying because they don't understand aesthetics or the fact that we love wearing ripped jeans. And all I have to say about that is these stereotypes are based on true people, but these true people were actually the extreme. So I feel like these stereotypes are like all the way on the, I don't know if you can see my hands right now, maybe they're too wide, but they're like all the way on the opposite ends of the spectrum, like the extremes. And then most of us are just somewhere in like the middle, maybe a little bit to the Gen Z side, maybe a little bit to the boomer side or to the like older side, but most of us are just like in the middle, just vibing. So all I want to say is base your stereotypes on the middle and probably the people around you. And if the people around you are the extremes, then get new friends, you guys. So, yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say. It's that we have all these different, like, stereotypes, rumors, issues, like, clouding us. And I feel like the way that I want to close this episode is by saying that if we can just, like, have empathy, understand each other's perspectives, not be clowns, not clown each other. That is one thing that Gen Z does, though. Like, as a teenager, because I don't want to even be like as a teenager, because it's that sometimes we label things as cringy, and then old people label Gen Z as like too new. It's a lot. But as me, as Siri, yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. As Siri, I definitely do clown my friends a lot on text, or like I feel like another thing is that on text, emojis are so much more different, like our use of emojis. Like, for example, if we're laughing at something, we don't use like the laughing crying emoji. We use a skull symbol. It's a lot. Gen Z humor is really different and definitely like dark. But one thing I do like about Gen Z humor is that there's like it's like a spectrum. Like some people have really dark humor, some people have like basic humor, and then most of us have like adaptive humor. And I also do like Gen Z's like use of slang, because I feel like there's always a word for when you want to express a very specific thing. And I definitely do love slang, but it's not hard for me to keep up with, but I'm scared that I'm going to be like one of those millennials complaining about like, oh my god, these kids are too young using all these slang words. So just praying for the future, hoping that the past is not like bad. And before I close this episode, I just want to say I am not trying to discredit what past generations have done for us at all, nor am I trying to call them out completely or say that like the newest generations will never be as good as you. I'm not trying to discredit anyone or anything. I think we're all like, we deserve to be here. So like I'm thankful for older generations, but also like excited to see what I can do for the future. Yeah, inspirational talk. But what I really want to close this episode on is like a note of like understanding and empathy, is that if we're just like good human beings, then we can like avoid all of these different conflicts and arguments and like, bad things that happen and annoy Siri. So, just be a good human being, be a clown, don't be, because I also, if you are a clown, Gen Z will be there to drag you and cancel you. And that's another thing about Gen Z, it's cancel culture. So I keep going like in and out of the video. Like I say I'm going to close it, but I don't close it. But basically this entire video is like, yeah, it's a lot to take in, because I always say that my episodes have a lot to unpack, but I feel like this is like the mega queen king saga compilation of like so many different topics, so many different things. Maybe I should do like a part 2 to this episode, because it's definitely getting long. But yeah, so let's just be good human beings and not piss Siri or the rest of the world off, and not ruin the world for the future because climate change and global warming. And I do want to do an episode on that. So thank you, Filming Siri, for all these ideas. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate all the support. The fact that you guys supported me so much on the last episode, despite the fact that I took like a really long break, or that I had lots of scheduling conflicts. All the love, all the support is amazing. Love you, Gen Z. Love you, millennials, baby boomers, old people. Literally every single generation out there, love you, except if you're a terrible clown person. Yeah. I don't want to go into details or like swear or something because I don't want to include that in my podcast. But thank you so much for watching and goodbye. Oh, as always, have a good morning, noon, afternoon, dusk, dawn, day, night, evening, every single time zone, including daylight savings time if your country does that. I'm pretty sure it's only the US that does that except Arizona. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and goodbye everyone. As always, this is Siri's podcast.